Hi there. Oh God. Oh, I don't even know where to start with this. It's been so long that it feels weird to just start. Like, do I need to explain myself or can I just be like, "Hey," and can we forget that I've been gone for 3 months for just a few seconds here? I will address it eventually. Probably, maybe, I don't know. I don't think people actually care that much. I think people care more than they actually care. I think they're more happy, if anything, that I'm here now than wanting or demanding some sort of explanation. But needless to say, life has been kicking me in the ass for a while. A lot of stuff has gone down, and I just needed some time, you know? This is not my career. This is just something I do for fun. And if I'm not in a position where I'm able to have fun, then it's more of a chore for me than fun. You know what I mean? But I'm ready and willing to have some fun again. Not only to have some fun, but to see what direction I can take this channel in further, especially since it's a new year and this is going to be the first, well, I guess the second full year of my channel. The first year, last year, was really the beginning of this channel and me kind of figuring out what I was doing and what I wanted and the sort of medium of me interacting with YouTube. So I think this year is going to be the year where things start to actually come together, you know what I'm saying? But we'll see. So this video won a recent poll that I put up. It was just a quick poll that lasted only 2 days. And this poll was just to, put feelers out there for what I should jump back into making my content with, since it's been, like I said, a while. But shit. See, it's been so long I forgot to do my intro. Hi, I'm Eddie. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the Wolfsbane Witch. You know all this. And if you don't know all this, hi, you know this now. Greetings, welcome. Oh gosh. So, today I thought I'd be making a sort of serious but not serious video about something that I've been thinking about within the past few months. I watched this video, I think by Zoe B here on YouTube. I'll leave a link to it somewhere in the description and about up in the attic. And it was about YouTube and media literacy. And it really got me thinking. Of course, it gets me thinking about magic because I'm always thinking about magic, but I found myself kind of drawing these connections between media literacy and paganism. So this video is not necessarily super witchy. It's going to be more about the pagan-y side of things, the more deity and spirit work side of things. So if that's not your jam, I totally understand. But if you want to stick around, that's fine too. Also, since my ADHD is all over the place, I got a new setup going on. Look at that. Whoa! Things, tchotchkes, all sorts of fun stuff. So if you want a little witchy room tour video of my new recording space, leave a wolf emoji in the comments if you want to see more of this space in the future. But where was I? Yeah, so I was watching this video on media literacy, and it got me thinking about some of the issues that a lot of new pagans, specifically ones that want to begin deity work and deity worship and giving offerings and stuff, tend to ask. So I guess I'll just kind of take all of these chaotic things that I've been saying and try to form something that makes sense. So, in the video that Zoe B posted, I think part of the issue of media literacy that they touched on, which I thought was really poignant and really important, was the ability to tell the difference between plot and story. You see, plot, in case you don't know the difference, is what happens, the sequence of events in a story. And the story is everything else. It is really the meat of the story. It's stuff like symbolism, characterization, character arcs and development, and all of the stuff that makes a good story a good story. You know, you can't really have a strong plot and a bad story and still have it be good. They both need to work with each other, right? And being able to understand the difference between plot and story is an integral part of being able to be literate, media literate, and also literate when it comes to bodies of literature. And I found that this intersected with some of the issues that we have with paganism, I think because the paradigm that many witches come to paganism from is a paradigm that does not encourage us to discern the difference between plot and story. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my perspective on this. And look, I'm not a scholar or anything. I didn't do a whole lot of research into this sort of topic, so I could be wrong, but this is just some of my thoughts and observations about what I think might contribute to this when it comes to witchcraft and paganism. And if you have any thoughts about this, make sure to leave that in the comments below, because I'd like to see what other people have to say. I haven't heard any other witches talking about this specifically, but I still think that it's something that, I personally think that it's something that we should be talking about. So what I mean by the paradigm that witches come from that does not encourage knowing the difference between plot and story is that most modern witches come from a Western colonialist place, or a place that has Western colonialist values sort of intertwined with their culture that may be outside of that. It's the problems of living in a post-colonialist world. You know, we say it's post-colonialist, but that's debatable. But what comes from this are sort of two different extremes that tend to play out in a way that gives us a very similar effect on this sort of subject matter. So the two different extremes are the sort of Western colonialist scientific supremacy narrative, and then there's a Western colonialist Christian and Christianity perspective. And both of these don't really encourage looking at the story. They just encourage you ingesting the plot and not questioning it. So when it comes to Western scientific supremacy, what I'm trying to say is that the narrative within this certain form of science, or the paradigm around this form of science, is typically like, anything that is scientific is good and true and right, and anything that is not scientific is bad and stupid and wrong. Okay? And on the other side, we have the sort of religious Christian side, which says that anything in the Bible is absolutely true, and anything in the Bible is absolutely right, and anything in the Bible is absolutely good, and anything outside of it is wrong and not right and bad, right? And both of these forms of thinking don't really leave a lot of squishy room for interpretation, and a lot of them focus on what happens. In science, you get the plot. And science only really needs the plot, so you can't really dunk on science for that. But when it comes to Christianity, you're not really engaged with the story. You're supposed to take it very much at face value, especially if you grew up in America, like I did, where a lot of the Christian teachings are very literalist. You know, like, God literally said this thing, God literally did this thing, this actually happened, regardless of whether or not it's disproven by science, like the Great Flood. You know what I mean? Like, there's no room for metaphor, there's no room for symbolism. The plot is exactly what happened. The plot is the story. There is no separation there. And I think when you grow up with these two sort of very black and white ways of thinking that don't encourage you to actually be fully literate, and by literate, I don't mean the actual physical ability to read words. By literate, I mean the ability to see the context of what you're reading and understand the words, of course, but also to be able to read the subtext of what you're reading, which is often between the lines and often not written straight out, right? So for instance, in the story of Little Red Riding Hood, the plot, we all know the plot, right? Little Red Riding Hood, goes to give goodies to her grandmother who's sick. A wolf, intercepts her on her way, finds out where the grandmother is, eats the grandmother, then eats her. Then a woodsman comes and in some versions of the story saves them, right? That's the plot. But if I asked you what the story was, what the meaning of the story was, you might say something like, don't talk to strangers. But the thing is that don't talk to strangers was never explicitly said in the plot of the story. No one said that at the very end. No one turns to the camera and says, this was the moral. But we know what the moral of the story is. We know what the story was. And this is based on subtext. This is based on things like characterization, things like symbology, things like dialogue, things like setting. All of these things that are not necessarily part of the plot. And because Christianity and science doesn't necessarily engage with plot, and because many of us come from this sort of society in which this paradigm is kind of inherited to us, part of the deconditioning that we need to do as pagans when it comes to beginning to work with deity is to realize that this sort of literalism that comes from taking the plot at face value doesn't necessarily translate to paganism and to mythic texts. And so that's why I'm calling this mythical literacy, because I think one of the main issues people who are new to paganism and deity work have is that they're trying to engage with something that doesn't work within the narrative of their paradigm that they have been inherited, which is this very black and white paradigm. And so when they read texts like the stories of Athena, right, and they see things that she did to Arachne or to Medusa, they get scared because they think, oh my gosh, if I mess up, if I don't give this goddess the right offering, if I don't do this the right way, if I don't say the right thing, if I do something wrong completely on accident, this goddess is going to punish me and be awful and terrible. And so I'm scared, even though I want to, and even though I feel like I'm drawn to this god or goddess or entity, I feel terrified because I don't want to mess up. Right? I don't want to be punished. I don't want to be like Medusa. I don't want to be like Arachne. I don't want this to happen to me. What do I do? And I think this issue comes from taking things too literally. And by reading the myths and taking the plot as the story and not looking at it as a body of literature. So what I mean is that yes, the people who spoke these myths and who believed in these gods, they did believe in them as a literal force, right? But they didn't necessarily believe the stories in the way that the Bible tends to present the stories as like, this is God's literal words. He literally flooded the earth. It was more like a body of literature. You read it like you read a story. And you understood it like you would understand the symbolism in a story. And I just wanted to make this video just real quick, and I don't really have a super big point to make, but I just wanted to talk about that because I think a lot of new witches are very scared of the gods, and I think part of that is because they are looking at pagan gods through a Christian framework, even if they don't believe in a Christian framework anymore, even if they haven't believed in a Christian framework in a very long time. And I think it's because we have ingrained in ourselves the almost inability to approach religion as a body of literature, because we have been so pressed by colonialist society to view it as a very stringent and very unquestionable truth, and the truth is in the plot. The truth is in what happened. It's almost like a listing of scientific facts or a listing of historical events. There's no story there. There's just shit that happened and shit that didn't. And that's not necessarily the case when it comes to reading and understanding and absorbing the lessons from mythology. There's a lot of layers in it, and the gods don't speak in straight lines. So I guess I'm making this video for anyone who's new, or for anyone who wants to explain to a newer witch, to just calm down and not take things so literally when you're reading these myths. Because it's so easy to read the myths and say, oh, well, I would never work with Zeus because he's a predator, you know? Or like, I wouldn't work with Athena because she'd turn me into a spider, or I won't do this, or I won't do that. And they're missing the point of the symbolism. They're missing the emotional impact of the story, the human element of the story, both the human element reflected in the humans in the story, but also the human element reflected in the gods and the goddesses of the stories. And they're taking it as, like I said, a little bit too literally, and I think that is hurting their ability to actually connect with something on a very deep and symbolic level, in the same way that we can connect to something like literature in that same very deep way. So yeah, that's just my quick little rant slash observation slash thoughts. I think a lot of the issues that a lot of witches face have to do with literacy in one form or another. And I think part of that has to do not with necessarily the fault of the witch, but the fault of the society, which has not encouraged us to actually engage with literature as literature. And I don't know. Some thoughts I've been having. Again, if you want to see a room tour, leave a little wolf emoji in the comments. And if you like this video, leave a like. If you want to comment, leave a comment. If you want to subscribe, subscribe. But I can't tell you what to do. I'm not your dad. Anyway, goodbye and take care.